In this video, I'm gonna rank 34 of the greatest monster anime ever made, and it's spoiler free, okay? I hate spoilers. Anime that make it to this list need to be about either kaiju, kimono, yokai, demons, devils, basically any anime that's about anything that even remotely looks like a monster is going to be on this list, provided they're good. And yeah, I'm gonna be ranking everything from worst to best. I don't like to rank things, but for this video, I'm gonna rank it all. Okay, let's get into it. Shingeki no Bahamut is about a group of heroes who find themselves in the middle of an ancient war between gods and demons. Now, this is one of those super average shows that I love. I say it's average, but average to me means it's good, just not as good as everything else. You should watch it. Danmachi's your average adventure anime about a guy that wants to be the strongest dungeon raiding adventurer. I have mixed feelings about this anime the same way I have mixed feelings about Tokyo Ghoul. You know, like the first season's great, then everything else is just terrible. But you know, unlike Tokyo Ghoul, there's nothing special about Danmachi, except maybe you know it's a fun show. Look, you should watch it, it's actually really good. That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime is just another anime about a guy that dies and pops up in another world with magic and dragons and all that. Only this time, the protagonist isn't reincarnated as an uber powerful hero, but instead as a slime. Then he becomes an uber powerful hero. I have little to no love for this anime, but I have to admit that it's a good time. Undead Girl Murder Farce is a mystery anime about an immortal head. I mean, she used to have a body, but now she's just a head. Anyway, she travels around the world solving cases with a monster and a maid with a big gun. Now, this anime is mostly stunning, unfortunately. I say it's unfortunate because I wish all of it was stunning. The reason it's not is because the last couple of episodes are horrifically terrible. That doesn't mean you shouldn't watch this anime. If you don't, you're not going to meet this family of vampires, or this master thief, or this league of supervillains. Doro is about a samurai lord who sacrifices his firstborn son to demons so his domain can get some rain, okay? That's how things work in feudal Japan. His son survives, but without his limbs or any of his senses. So throughout the show, he fights and kills demons that possess the body that was taken from him. I know a lot of people love Dororo, but for me, it's a mixed bag. The premise is solid, and there were some good moments in the show, but I also feel like the world building was terrible, the characters were flat, and the monsters were flat too. How do you get the monsters wrong, man? Shakugan no Shana had some pretty interesting monsters. Anyway, I think most people will like this show, so I recommend it. Kemono Jian is about a boy that's recruited into an occult investigation agency that hunts monsters known as Kemono. This anime has a great cast of characters that literally made me stick with the show till the end. It's not the greatest anime in the world, but you can't not love Kemono Jian, okay? Solo Leveling is about this guy that gets this video game ability to level up his powers and abilities when no one else can. Honestly, I think Solo Leveling has a bunch of problems that I'd much rather talk about in a separate video, but the bottom line is, it's fun. Hachiraku Cyber Black is about the cells in the body of a guy with a reckless lifestyle. Because of how he lives, his body is falling apart. So this is actually an apocalyptic anime, and the monsters come in the form of bacterial attacks. Few things make me as happy as finding great anime like this. Unfortunately, few things do. Dark Gathering is so good. It's about this guy that gets wheeled into hunting evil spirits with an elementary school kid that's a master of the occult. This is a 2023 anime that just slipped under the radar. I didn't expect much from it, if I'm being honest, but it turned out to be great. It's tense and scary, and the story is super solid. I highly recommend it. Tokyo Ghoul is about a guy that almost gets eaten alive by a ghoul, but instead somehow survives and becomes a ghoul himself. What I loved most about Tokyo Ghoul was its villain, Jason. He's one of the greatest anime villains of all time, and I think he single-handedly elevated Tokyo Ghoul into something above the norm. Grimgar of the Ash is about these high school kids that are suddenly transported to another world with no recollection of who they are or what world they came from. What made this anime special for me is that it had a realistic look on what being transported to another world is like on a human level. Like, what's the transition of being a normal high school kid to being a monster hunting adventurer actually like? Like, what's that actually like, man? Soma Spider So What is an extremely underrated isekai that no one seems to have watched for some reason. It's about this class getting transported into another world. Wow, so unique. Everyone in the class ends up being a warrior of some kind, but our protagonist ends up being a weak spider stuck in a dungeon. Now, you might think that there's no way this is good, but I promise this is the best isekai you will ever watch. The last couple of episodes aren't that great though, but that doesn't matter when 99% of the show is this good. Cabaneri of the Iron Fortress is about humanity pushed the edge of extinction because of these zombie-like monsters called Cabaneri. The protagonist gets bitten by one of them, but he stops the infection and becomes a Cabaneri, a person that's part human, part Cabaneri. He's so cool. Something a lot of anime struggle with is world building, but not Cabaneri of the Iron Fortress. Cabaneri of the Iron Fortress is a solid world with solid everything, and you're gonna love it. Okay, it's not solid everything, but it's mostly solid. Kaiju number 8 is about a man that merges the monster and gains the ability to transform into a kaiju. He then uses his powers to protect his city from monster invasions. In case you're wondering what kaiju is, it just means monster or giant monster. This guy's not a giant monster or anything. He's like a little monster. He's like a 7-foot tall monster. You know, still big. Not that big though. Seen bigger. Dungeon Meshi is about a party of dungeon raiding adventurers who choose to eat monsters to stay alive as they try to save a girl that was eaten by a dragon. Dude, at first I thought Dungeon Meshi wasn't exactly the type of show I'd like, but it won me over with a lot of charm and a lot of humor. Goblin Slayer is about an adventurer who hunts nothing but goblins. The goblins in this world are a menace, yet they're underestimated by everyone except the protagonist, who's seen just how messed up these little guys are. This anime had a pretty disturbing first episode that rightfully upset a lot of people, but I tried to see past it and enjoy the show. It's a dark story with a super cool protagonist, and I recommend it. Hell's Paradise is about a ninja that gets captured by the authorities and is forced to go to a mystical island with other convicts so as to find the elixir of life. By doing so, he gets to win his freedom back and be with his wife. So sweet. It took me a while to watch Hell's Paradise because I thought it was going to be the same old action shonen I've watched 1,000 times before, and for the most part, it actually was just that, but I loved it anyway. There's a lot of moments in the show that completely caught me off guard, and there's literally never a dull moment. This is a great time. Hellsing Ultimate is about Dracula working for an organization that fights monsters. You see, that's a great idea. This is a pretty rare anime in that its pacing is supercharged and everything is so chaotic and over the top, yet it never feels incoherent. It's easy to see that the show was made by a bunch of masters that knew exactly how to push everything to the absolute edge without the anime falling apart. Kimetsu no Yaiba is about a boy that becomes a demon slayer after the father of demon kind kills his family. A huge part of the anime community has a problem with Kimetsu because they don't believe it deserves to be as successful as it is. I, however, think that although Kimetsu is as basic as anime gets, it's sort of perfect. Anyone can hop into it and have a good time because it's a simple, fast-paced story, and the animation is the best the industry has to offer. I mean, what's not to love? Neon Genesis Evangelion is about these kids that are forced to pilot giant robots and fight an oncoming alien invasion. Okay, Neon Genesis Evangelion is good, but is it that good? You know, I don't know. I think it's okay. World Trigger is super underrated. It's about this agency that's developed technology that enables its agents to have bodies made up of an energy called Trion. With these Trion bodies, they fight monsters that randomly come out of portals from an alternate dimension. World Trigger is a lot like your common long-running shonen, only it's a lot more complex and a lot slower paced. I actually remember when Toei decided to discontinue it because no one was watching it, but they've since released new seasons, which I actually haven't watched yet, but I'm pretty sure they're still good. Mahou Shoujo Madoka Magica is an anime about normal high school girls being talked into becoming witch-fighting magical girls by a talking cat. Like, how does that even happen? If I saw a cat talking, how is it going to convince me to do anything? You know, now that I think about it, at first, this show tries to come across as harmless, but I think the talking cat just gave it away. I mean, this is not like a Ghibli talking cat. This is like a weird stuffed animal thing that these girls believed, and, you know, it's ridiculous. Anyway. Kemonozume is about this secret agency of martial artists that hunt shape-shifting man-eating monsters. The agency's soon-to-be successor falls in love with a monster, and they just make up for such a sad love story, man. It's like, of all the women in the world, you decided, you know what? I want a monster. In his defense, he didn't know she was a monster until he was already in love, and then, you know, it's kind of sweet when you look at it that way. The show has a pretty unique art style that might be off-putting to some of you, but if you're willing to look past that, then you're going to be spun around in so much weirdness, mayhem, and tragedy that you might either regret watching this in the first place or come back and thank me for recommending it to you. You're welcome. Devilman Crybaby is about a world quietly being overrun by devils. In the midst of this, a kid merges with the most powerful of them and becomes a Devilman. This is the type of anime that has characters that have this haunting quality about them that makes you realize that this is probably a messed up story that's going to turn a lot of people off. And that explains Devilman Crybaby's 7.7 rating on Mal. But hey, I think it was a fantastic time. Jujutsu Kaisen is about sorcerers that fight these demon-like entities called curses. Our protagonist, Itadori Yuji, swallows this finger that belongs to the most powerful curse and becomes its vessel. Now, why do all these anime characters keep swallowing things and merging with things? It's a bad idea. I guess it all worked out because Jujutsu Kaisen is better than 99% of shonen anime. I mean, that second season was like the best thing I've ever watched. I'm just kidding. I've watched better. Mononoke is perhaps the most unique show on this list. It's about an occult specialist that goes around Japan fighting evil spirits called Mononoke. Now you see this as an ordinary person doing a good thing for people, doing a good thing for society. He's not merging with nothing. He's not swallowing Sukuna fingers. He's just going out there and helping people with their Mononoke problems. The whole show is a mystery that tries to figure out why these evil spirits are running amok. And behind every mystery are these terrible people with deep secrets that are the key to fighting the Mononoke. Chainsaw Man is about a world overrun by man-eating devils that get stronger the more afraid of them you are. Denji, the show's protagonist, merges with one of these devils and gains the ability to transform into the Chainsaw Devil. What I loved about this show is how the characters weren't simply your run-of-the-mill anime characters. They were an imitation of real people stuck in a dystopian reality filled with man-eating monsters. Claymore is a classic. It's about an elite organization made up of women called Claymore who hunt these shape-shifting man-eating monsters called Yoma. Now, I love it because it's a deep story that's held together with some really well-written characters that are bound in this hopelessly miserable world. You know, they don't make anime like this anymore. Made in Abyss is about a girl and a robot boy diving into this hole called the Abyss. First off, that's a terrible idea. There's enigmatic characters, villains, terrifying monsters, and a 12-year-old kid trying to survive it all with the help of her robot friend. It's a modern-day masterpiece. Bolger is a tragic story about these kids that get tricked into piloting a giant robot and fighting these giant machine creatures. Every single fight in this anime has severe consequences, and the moments in between the fights has these kids deal with the tragic implications of being pilots. If you've already watched Bolger, you might disagree with me putting it on this list, but believe me, it belongs here. One Punch Man is about a superhero that's so powerful that he can take out any monster with a single punch. This is one of the greatest anime of all time simply because it gets everything right. The animation is stellar, the story and premise is pretty exciting, the monsters are terrifying, the characters are great, Saitama is an epic protagonist. There's like a really long list of things that makes this show absolutely fantastic. In fact, I wrote more things down here, but it's too much to go through. Mob Psycho is about the most powerful Esper in the world looking beyond his powers and trying to make himself a better person. This anime is different in just about every way you can think of. From its weird characters to its unique art and animation and its story that has so many layers to it. Mob Psycho went beyond what an anime should be and embodied what an anime could be. Alright? That's deep. Write that down. Kaseiju is about a man-eating parasitic life form coming down from space and infecting humans by eating their heads from the inside out and taking their place in society. One kid saves himself from this fate, but he instead has his right arm eaten and is then forced to have a symbiotic relationship with a parasite. Kaseiju is one of the few anime I consider perfect. I've watched it about 7 or 8 times and it never fails to convince me otherwise. If you somehow haven't watched this absolute masterpiece yet, you should get into it as soon as today. Shingeki no Kyojin is about humanity pushed to the brink of extinction by these man-eating giants called Titans. The show possibly has the greatest story in all of anime, and that's why I think it's the greatest monster anime of all time. Now I know some of you are saying, the greatest story in all of anime? No way, this guy hasn't watched any anime, come on! But hey, If you've got a better anime with a better story than Shingeki no Kyojin's, I'm all ears, okay? Let's argue about it in the comments, but don't be toxic, all right? Let's be civil, all right? I have an honorable mention, by the way, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Part 1 and 2. It might seem odd to add JoJo's Bizarre Adventure to the list, and that's exactly why I didn't. But the first part of JoJo is about vampires, and the second part is about the Pillar Men. I mean, those guys are obviously monsters, right? Anywho, thanks for watching. I love you guys, and I'll see you in the next one.